Federal government says it will no longer release guiding price bands for the sale of premium bottled spirit at petrol stations. Executive Secretary, Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency, Abdul Kadiri Seidu, says going forward, PMS price will be determined by the forces of demand and supply and the international cost of crude oil, adding that the downstream arm of the oil and gas sector has been fully deregulated. Presently, petrol is selling for between 160 and 167 naira per litre. Meanwhile, some Nigerians took to the streets in Ogun, Oyo and Osun states to protest the increase in the prices of fuel, electricity tariff and subscription for cable television. The protests were mostly spearheaded by students of higher institutions with support from workers and civil society organizations. And public affairs analyst Fola Daniel Adelesi joins me via Skype for more on the deregulation of downstream oil sector. Good to have you join us this hour. Now, the federal government has removed, subsidy. It says it can no longer sustain the subsidy on fuel, and now it's going to allow market forces determine the price of petrol. But we're seeing several protests across every part of the country. What do you make of this decision coming from the government?
The first and the most important thing that I think the government needs to pay attention to is the manner and the channels of communication. I've said repeatedly that one of the greatest mistakes this administration is making is the inability to communicate effectively with the people. If you look at the removal of the subsidy that we're talking about, it has been foretold. We have been told over and over again, more than 5, 6, 7 years ago, that the way to go is to subsidize the downstream, to stop subsidizing petrol because it doesn't make economic sense. According to the former CBN governor, Malam Sanusi, who became the emir of Kano, he had told us that we're spending over 1 trillion naira subsidizing the fuel that we were supposedly importing, because there were also proofs that some people didn't lift a barrel, but they were being paid for subsidy. So it was not sustainable because 1 trillion naira is about 10% of the initially proposed 2020 budget, which was 10 trillion naira. So how can you be spending 1% of your national budget subsidizing petrol alone? It doesn't make sense. However, we agreed that we needed to remove that subsidy, but we also know that it was going to cause a lot of pain for the Nigerian citizens. The kind of pains, the kind of hardship that it was going to cause was not communicated effectively. More importantly, this is coming at a time when businesses are still trying to recover from a pandemic. There was no palliatives to Nigerians, or the palliative wasn't felt in most corners of the country. And if the palliative wasn't felt in most corners of the country, you're also introducing hike in electricity tariff and hike in price of premium motor spirits.
If let's just allow me jump in here, which is what a lot of people are also talking about. Some people agree that forced subsidy should be removed, others don't, because of this kind of exploitation from some people in the market who all of a sudden prices of food and other commodity items have skyrocketed. But we also know that generally things are now really very tough for people for reasons that you just mentioned. And some people are saying government should provide palliatives or cushion the effect in some other areas.
Yes, I totally agree that government needs to cushion the effect. I was speaking up against the introduction of stamp duty at this time. I was on your station. I spoke against it, that it's ill-timed to be talking about the introduction of stamp duty on accounts and in different ways. That's one of the palliatives that the government can give to make this a lot easier for people. Take, for example, if you need to send money to different people, the money will be charged at different stages, and it's just one amount of money that you're sending. So while the government may not have any other choice but to remove the subsidy, the question is, what else is it doing right? What else is it doing for the people? So yes, the subsidy is important, and we know it's going to cause the prices of things to go up, and Nigerians will naturally exploit things. I was at a filling station recently, and I said to them, you guys are quick to take the prices up when there's an increase, but once there is a decrease, you're not quick to take it up. You will say, oh, you have old stock and you've not sold out the whole stock. So Nigerians also have a share of the blame. Sometimes we tend to exaggerate the impact of the increase. Yes, the increase has an impact, but Nigerians are also exaggerating the impact of the increase. So someone who doesn't use fuel in any way will tell you, oh, don't you know that the price of fuel has gone up? And that's why the price of my products too will go
So
up.
who
And
should come
someone
in
who is
here,
also selling
Daniel?
hot chocolate.
Quickly, who should come in
Okay.
here? We know we have the consumer protection agency on one hand, but who should actually come in here to check all of this so people can actually, just to cushion the effect of this hardship?
Unfortunately, I wish I could say that the regulatory bodies should come in, which is the PPPRA. But again, as we know, anything Nigerian, some of the people who are in the regulatory agencies are also stakeholders in this business. And so long as they remain stakeholders in this business, they will not be able to regulate effectively. The other downside to it is that if they say, oh, the competition will make it better for the people, the issue is most of these filling stations have associations, so there will be no competition. They decide, just like you go to a salon, the people at the salon agree together how much you should make your hair. This is the same thing for the filling station. They have association. So I wish and I'm hoping that the PPPRA will step up. The DPR will do its duty and make sure that these people do not exploit Nigerians. I can only wish, but I don't really trust them to make the regulatory exercise, which is their duty, because some of them are even stakeholders in these filling stations that we're talking about. And that's the major challenge for us. But
All right.
Nigerians themselves also need to keep speaking up.
We'll see how things pan out in the coming days. Public affairs analyst Fola Daniel Adelesi, thanks for talking to us.
My pleasure.